Hello, and welcome back to the Fulbright Roadmap, the 7-step comprehensive guide to writing your best Fulbright application this year. My name is Leah Rogstad, and I am a Spain study Fulbright grantee from the 21-22 cycle. And today we are talking about the ideas that you must include in your statement of grant purpose and personal statement to make the most compelling statements. And so, number one, you want to think about the fact that you have your resume, you have your biographical data on the Fulbright application. So these two statements are really your space to shine as a person and create a narrative and kind of a 3D version of you that shows your story, doesn't just tell it in a list format that you already have on your resume. So number one, you want to make sure that you have fully completed the tasks. On the Fulbright application website, you're going to see that they clearly outline the questions that you must answer in your statement of grant purpose and also in your personal statement. So number one, you want to make sure that you have completed those tasks, answered all of the questions. For the personal statement, you're creating that 3D version of you that tells your academic and personal narrative and why this grant is so important in the next stage of your life. And for the statement of grant purpose, you really want to make sure you're doing the who, what, where, when, why of your grant. You're making sure that the reader feels convinced that you have created a project that is feasible and that you have the skills and knowledge in order to not just execute it, but really thrive in executing it, and also the skills to adapt when things don't go well, and also that you have the cultural competence or the linguistic ability to function in that country and complete your project. So again, this is kind of a test on whether or not you can complete a task. So you want to make sure that you are answering those questions directly and clearly, and that the screening committee doesn't have to look for your answers with those questions. Number two, let's go back to the host country competence. Again, in both of these places, you want to show that you have extensive knowledge of the host country. So that might mean that you are making specific cultural references to the region that you might be working in, showing that you have the historical or political knowledge in order to complete your project. Or you also have previous experiences that you might not have mentioned on your resume or that you want to elaborate on to show that you can be that cultural ambassador in the host country and thrive in that space. And then you also want to show that you have a strong understanding of cultural perspectives and are not going to pass value judgment on a different culture or create any kind of political tension in the country, because this is about cultural exchange and being an ambassador, not about necessarily solving a political problem or something like that. And with that said, these are the things you should not do. Do not make sweeping generalizations or absolute statements about what everyone does or believes in the United States or in your host country. Do not make political judgments or allude to getting involved in political movements because, again, this is a cultural exchange program. It is not a political advocacy program. And number three, do not make value judgments about certain cultural practices because that just does not come off as culturally competent at all. And last but not least, you want to think about redundancy. So you want to answer all of these questions very clearly, very directly. But again, you want to cross-reference them with your resume and with each other. You don't want to be repeating yourself multiple times because each of these different pieces should serve a purpose in providing unique information, an anecdote, some kind of characteristic or previous experience that paints that picture of you and makes it clear why you are aligned with the Fulbright mission, you're aligned with your grant and the purpose of your grant, and you have the skills and knowledge to do the grant that you would like to complete. So those are some of the things that I think you need to include in your statement of grant purpose and personal statement. And in the guide, you will actually have access to extensive checklists of this process. So for example, for the statement of grant process, we go through the format of the document, what you should and should not do, the structure in the discourse. So how are you structuring that, as well as the exact questions that you must answer. These are available on the Fulbright website. I've just made them a little bit easier to follow. So that you ensure that you've answered all those questions. So if you would like that, you can access it in the link below. There's a free checklist, and then also the guide is below as well. So see you in the next video.